way down over his ears, some hair is
Following
going
day,
to show.
December 8th, he was sentenced in the year 1976. 46 years ago, Virgil Presnell was sentenced to death for the murder. Welcome back to the Death Row and Executions channel. I'm Paco Rivera. Since 1973, the state of Mississippi has executed 22 death row inmates, 4 in a gas chamber and 18 by lethal injection. The last time the state executed an inmate was David Neal Cox a year ago on November 17th, 2021. That case was the third video I did on this channel. Exactly 1 year later, just a few days ago, on November 17th, 2022, the state of Mississippi suddenly announced the upcoming execution of 58-year-old Thomas Edwin Loden Jr. to take place on December 14th. Loden has been on death row for 21 years and learned last week that he will be executed in 27 days. Thomas Loden is also an 18-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps. And at the time that he was arrested, he was serving as a recruiter for the Marines in the town of Vicksburg in Mississippi, where he lived with his wife and a young daughter. It was also learned during the investigations that he was heavily addicted to porn. In September of the year 2001, Loden waived his right to a trial by jury by pleading guilty to all the charges against him. He was then sentenced to death. On June 21st of the year 2000, Thomas Loden traveled from Vicksburg to Itawamba County, a nearly 4-hour drive, to his elderly grandmother's home on farmland where Thomas Loden grew up. He graduated from Itawamba High School in that area in 1982, where he was reportedly an excellent student. Soon after graduation, he enlisted in the Marines. As a Marine, it was reported that he was highly regarded. He had been selected as an outstanding recruit, was promoted to the rank of gunnery sergeant, and was the recipient of multiple awards. He was deployed to the Gulf War in Iraq and had watched as a friend who just recently married and had a baby got killed beside him. The report also shows that after returning from the war, he suffered from PTSD, began drinking heavily and using drugs. Still, he accepted the assignment of recruiter for the Marines and was just taking some time off when he visited his grandmother, who is disabled and gets around in a wheelchair. Loden stated that he went there to get some things fixed around the house. As I said earlier, he arrived there on June 21st, a Wednesday. Up until the time that Thomas Loden was arrested, he had no criminal record. He'd never committed a crime that anyone knows of. However, by the following day, Thursday, June 22nd of the year 2000, that would change. Leesa Marie Gray was a 16-year-old girl living in Dorsey, Mississippi, in Itawamba County. Dorsey is said to be a stone's throw away from Tupelo, Mississippi, where the birth home of Elvis Presley is located. Leesa was about to start her senior year in high school. She had been the junior class vice president at Itawamba Agricultural High School the previous year. She was also a member of Bethel Baptist Church, where she was a part of the senior youth group. Leesa also had a little brother named James, who was 10 years old at the time. And she was planning a ski trip with friends in the coming months. The petite teenager wearing braces was described by everyone that knew her as a really sweet, likable girl. Leesa was working as a waitress at a cafe called Comer's Family Restaurant, an off the main road diner type establishment, the kind that cross-country truckers often pull into, in the town of Mantashe, also in Itawamba County, and just a few minutes drive from Leesa's home. The cafe was owned by her family. She began her shift that Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometime later, Thomas Edwin Loden arrived at Comer's Cafe in his grandmother's car and went inside. He had a seat at a table and ordered a cheeseburger. Witnesses have stated that the man, who appeared to be more than twice Leesa's age, was inappropriately flirting with the young girl, who probably tried her best to remain sweet and polite, which was her nature. It was a situation that surely made other patrons in the cafe uncomfortable. Thomas Loden may have thought that after so many years away from Itawamba County that nobody would recognize him, but he was wrong. It is important to keep in mind that the cook at Comer's, a man named Richard Talent, who had gone to high school with Loden, had seen Thomas Loden at the table and knew exactly who he was. Not only that, in a small town where word gets around quickly, the cook, Richard Talent, had also gotten wind that Loden was in town and staying at his grandmother's farm. Thomas Loden eventually left the cafe, and as the investigation would later show, he went home to prepare what investigators refer to as a rape kit, consisting of a knife, rope, and tape. He also had with him a gun and a video camcorder. Right about 9 o'clock that night, when the cafe was about to close, Loden returned in his van to Comer's restaurant. At some point, he had somehow learned which car in the parking lot belongs to Leesa, and he parked his van right beside it. Loden then went inside and ordered another cheeseburger. Loden later went back outside to the parking lot as employees inside were in the process of cleaning up and closing down, and he stood between his van and Leesa's car. When he was sure that no one was looking, he took out a knife and punctured a hole in the tire of Leesa's car, allowing a slow leak of air to flow out of it. A small piece of the blade had broken off the knife and remained lodged in the tire. Loden then drove his van to the other end of the parking lot, parked, and waited. While waiting, he called his wife in Vicksburg from his cell phone, and they spoke. Loden's wife would later say that the call had become very intimate and sexually explicit. As one reporter put it, Loden's wife had no idea that her husband was using the conversation to work himself into a state of violent, erotic insanity. Leesa's shift ended about 10:30 that night. She got into her car to head home. She made it about half a mile up the road along Highway 178, and right at the intersection of 178 and Dorsey School Road, she became stranded. She turned on the car's four-way flashers and got out to inspect the tire. Several minutes later, Thomas Loden pulled up behind her in his van. Loden, who stands 6 feet 6 inches tall and with his military training, a massive figure compared to the little teenager, under the pretense of being a good Samaritan, got out and approached Leesa and asked her what's the problem. She told him that the car has a flat tire. Loden later told investigators that he told Leesa that he's a Marine and that's what they do. They help people in these situations. Loden then told Leesa that he also recruits people to join the Marines and asked her if she would like to join. According to Loden, she told him that she was not interested. He said that's when he became very angry and ordered Leesa to get in the van. Obviously, he needed a reason to get angry with her. That was the plan. Loden then drove the van to the farmland where he was staying. Very late at night now. He then spent the next 4 hours brutally sexually assaulting Leesa inside the van. The details of the things that he had done to her are so horrific that I won't discuss them here. During that time, he had also video recorded with his camcorder some of the things that he had done. Sometime about 3 o'clock in the morning, he went inside the house and went to sleep. At about 11 o'clock in the evening, about 30 minutes after Leesa had left work for a 5-minute drive home, Leesa's mother Wanda, who also worked at Comer's restaurant, was wondering why her daughter hadn't arrived home yet. Leesa had always been very good at calling if she was ever going to be late. Wanda called the cook, Richard Talent, at his home to ask about Leesa. Richard told Wanda that Leesa left Comer's about 10:30. It then dawned on him that he had passed a car with hazard lights flashing while on his way home, and now wonders if that was Leesa's car. He quickly rushed back to his car and headed back over there. A short time later, Leesa's mother Wanda and her husband Michael and the cook Richard were all gathered by the car. They saw that it was Leesa's car. Her purse and a cell phone was still on the passenger seat. As Richard and Wanda's husband Michael changed the tire, Wanda drove around looking to see if her daughter was walking along a road somewhere. Richard and Michael, while working on that tire, discovered a piece of what appeared to be a knife blade inserted in the tire. That sent up all kinds of red flags. Authorities were notified about the missing teenager, and a massive search began that included a helicopter. And through the night, investigators questioned everyone they could locate that had been at Comer's restaurant the previous evening. The one person that kept popping up when people were questioned was some creepy guy with a green van that was flirting with Leesa and was still in the area when her shift ended. A man we now know as Thomas Edwin Loden. And when investigators asked the cook, Richard Talent, about this man, he said that that's who he remembers as Eddie Loden from school and that he's staying at his grandmother's house. Police arrived at Loden's grandmother's home very early in the morning, now Friday, the 23rd of June, and knocked on the door. The grandmother's sister, who was also staying there, had answered the door and told police that Loden was still asleep and they would have to return later. So the police left. Investigators, however, returned to the house about 9 o'clock that morning. And this time, the grandmother in her wheelchair answered the door. She told them that Loden had told her that he was going to go fishing at the lake at the rear of the property. Investigators couldn't find him, so they returned to the house and got permission from the grandmother to search the property. In Loden's bedroom, they found on the floor some of his clothing with bloodstains on it. His van outside was locked and with dark-tinted windows they couldn't see inside. In the grandmother's car, however, they found a rope with what an investigator recognized as a handcuffs knot. Following the discovery of bloody clothing and the handcuffs rope, that was enough to request a court-ordered search warrant and confiscation of the van. The van was towed to a crime lab in New Albany, Mississippi. Meanwhile, the search for Thomas Loden continued, and later that day, he was spotted by authorities lying on the side of a road. He had used a blade or other object to slash the words, "I'm sorry," into his chest, and he had self-inflicted lacerations on both wrists. Loden was taken to a hospital where he was treated. Doctors, however, had said that the injuries were superficial, more like scratches than cuts. Nothing life-threatening. While still at the hospital, authorities received word that at the crime lab in New Albany, technicians found the nude body of Leesa Marie Gray wedged under the back seat of the van. An autopsy revealed that she had died from suffocation and manual strangulation. Inside the van, they found other evidence, including a JVC video camcorder with a tape depicting a video recording of Thomas Loden's sick fantasies being inflicted upon the young girl. During another search of Loden's grandmother's property, investigators found, deep in the woods behind that land, a shovel lying on the ground, and beside the shovel, what appeared to be the start of a grave being dug. There was no doubt in their minds that Loden was planning on burying Leesa there. But his plans were ruined when he saw that authorities were quickly on his tail and on his grandmother's property. 4 days later, on June 26th of the year 2000, a 16-year-old girl in Massachusetts named Molly Bish would disappear. And that case ended up getting a lot more media attention nationally. Her remains were found 3 years later, and that case to this day remains unsolved. Still, over 1,000 people attended the funeral of Leesa Marie Gray. The eulogy was delivered by Pastor Terry Coleman of the Bethel Baptist Church, the church Leesa was a member of. It states in this article that his eulogy had grown men weeping. Something interesting to note, I don't know if it's related to this case, but at the intersection of Highway 178 and Dorsey School Road, at the spot where Leesa Marie Gray was abducted, these images from 2014 and 2019 show that there is a white cross with flower wreaths standing at that spot. But I'm not sure if it's there for Leesa or if it's still there. Please remember to subscribe for more death row and upcoming execution stories. I'm Paco Rivera. Bye for now.